Okay, so this is basically just a few things regarding what's involved. Obviously, the project size, the type of construction, the people involved, contractors, and the contracts that we're going to use. All right, so what is the purpose of subcontractors? Obviously, they provide specialized labor for tasks. Now, obviously, we could be a very small builder and do most of the things ourselves. We can have, if you can imagine a very small project, we can have, maybe a couple of laborers, a carpenter, and ourselves, and we can try and do many things, right? In actual fact, there's only a few things that we are not allowed to do as builders, and that is all the specialized trades, what they call specialized trades. These are electrical, plumbing, gas fitting, air conditioning, and refrigeration. Okay? They're specialist trades. That means you are not allowed to do that unless you are licensed. Okay? So, but as builders, we don't try and do everything ourselves. We engage subcontractors, and there are many reasons why we do this. Okay, and that's what we're going to look at as well. So they are specialists in what they do. They might be good at painting, rendering, plastering, bricklaying, concreting. If we use these specialists, they can be obviously do a much better job, as well as a lower cost generally than what we could do it, because we don't have the speed or the experience. So that's one reason why we use subcontractors. Now, so that's the lower cost of work. Expedite construction works. As I just said before, the speed. I can maybe lay some bricks or paint, but will I do a good job as a proper painter or a bricklayer? No, I won't. Will I do it as fast? No, I won't. So it really defeats the purpose in me doing it. My time could be better spent doing something that I'm good at rather than trying to do things that I'm not good at. So we find people who are good subcontractors in order to ensure that we have a good quality job. Reduce builders' overhead. What does that mean? What are overheads? Overheads are what we pay as part of undertaking a project. So if I have a construction site, my overheads are going to be, firstly, my offsite overheads, which is my office and the people in my office and the vehicles and the phones and all the expenses associated with the office. But my on-site overheads are my staff. So the more staff I have, it means the more overheads I have, the more insurances I'm paying for, okay? The more holidays I have to give them, holiday pay, superannuation. Whereas if I use subcontractors, I don't need to pay for that, okay? That rate is part of the subcontractor's cost, not part of my cost. So we're reducing our overhead. And finally, and most importantly, is we are reducing the builder's risk. Okay, what does that mean? That means that if I undertake to do everything myself and something goes wrong, well, I'm going to be the one who has to pay for it. So in other words, if let's say I'm building a house and the house is supposed to be finished in, by the end of August, and I'm not going to be anywhere near finished. I can't claim any other extensions of times or variations, and I'm going to finish in September. Now, all of a sudden, the contract's going to say you have to pay liquidated damages. Now, a house may not be too bad, but when you're doing a commercial project, it can be many, many thousands of dollars every day or every week. So trying to do the work with our own staff may lead us to problems we're not going to finish and we're going to have to wear the cost. However, if we have subcontractors and we tie them up into a contract and say, your work must finish in accordance with our program. And your start date is then, your finish date is August. If you don't finish by that date, you will be responsible for any liquidated damages. We throw that responsibility and that risk back onto the subcontractors. So this is ideal with any risk, any situation where we have risk. Part of the risk strategy is to eliminate the risk or mitigate or share the risk. And this is what we're doing here. We're throwing the risk back onto the subcontractors, saying, you, Mr. Subcontractor, have to finish this project in this time and at this quality. Okay, otherwise there are penalties, and we have a signed contract. Okay, so it's a really important part to remember, reducing the risk of a builder. The more we do ourselves, the more risk we take on as a builder. Okay. Okay. What does the effective selection of subcontractor involve? How do we, in other words, how do we select the right subcontractor? So it involves, first of all, we have to plan for our project. What is our project? Okay. When do we need to start? How big is it? What size teams do we need? So once we establish that, then we could go about selecting the correct subcontractors for the job. Okay, so we have to know that obviously there's subcontractors who have 1 man or they have 20 men. We have to know the right subcontractor, and that's a thing we'll talk about soon. It's very important to be able to work with the subcontractor and coordinate the contractors. So being able to work with them, communicating with them, okay, and working with them. Make sure that we can coordinate them when they come to site. Okay, when are they supposed to be finished at this level? When are they supposed to be on the next level? How many men do they have here? How many men do they have there? It's all about coordination. And this involves obviously looking at your program, scheduling, and working together with your subcontractors. A very important part, and often we're very much focused on speed of construction, and we don't focus enough on monitoring our contractors. Now, monitoring our contractors is not just making sure that they turn up, and they turn up with 10 people. Monitoring our subcontractors is ensuring that the quality of what they're doing is good. Okay? Because it's no good finishing a job and then the client rejecting it. Or they finish a job, the next trade comes on top of them and they do their work, and then we inspect the quality of the project at the end, and we find that the quality was no good because of the first subcontractor not having done a good job. The second subcontractor came along, he just did what he was supposed to do. I'll give you a good example, is if we have some plasterboard gyprock going up and the joints, let's say, are not set properly, the painter comes along, he paints the walls, and then we look at the job and we go, oh, this is no good. Client's not going to accept this. We go to the painter, he says, it's not my fault, okay? I just painted what was there. It's the gyprocker who didn't set the joints properly, sand the joints properly or whatever. So can you see how we need to monitor at every stage, not just the end, not just say, okay, they're working there. We've got 10 gyprockers today. That's really good, let them work. No, we need proper supervision. So monitoring contractors, monitoring their work, monitoring how often they come. A big part of that is also ensuring that we have regular meetings. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit too soon. Okay, so the last stage is a project review. And that is reviewing the work, reviewing how the subcontractors performed is part of reviewing the whole project. We review the project. At the end of the day, we review the project to see, how did we go? Did we do a good job? Did we finish on time? Was the client happy? Where did we go wrong? Where can we improve? Okay, and part of that is our subcontractors. How did our subcontractors perform? Okay, I mean, I've had lots of examples where subcontractors haven't performed, and yet they may have performed on a previous job, but they didn't perform on this job. And there's many reasons for that. It could be the staff numbers changed, the quality of the staff changed. So their work is not at the same standard or of the same output quantity. So trying to work out, we can't just say they're a great subcontractor and we're going to leave them because we've used them before and they're fantastic, let them go. No, we have to look at every project and say, how did they perform on this project? Where did they let us down? Did they not communicate well with us? Did they not attend the meetings? Did they? So we examine very closely our subcontractors, because that's going to affect what we do next time. In fact, sometimes monitoring contractors, you might find that, and I've had to do this a number of times, is stop subcontractors even whilst they're on the job. And that's not a good thing to have to do. But if they're not performing, and that performance may be they're not producing the quantity, or they're not complying with our program. So if they're not complying with our program, I have to stop it, because it's all good to say that maybe we have a contract and they're going to be up for any liquidated damages. But more important than that is that we have to maintain our reputation. And we do not want to have a reputation that we cannot finish a project on time. Some projects are much more, it's much more important fact to be finished on time. I'll give you an example. With all the office fit out work I used to do, the client expected me, he would give me a time or a day and say, this is the day we have people moving in. So it doesn't matter whether it's raining, hailing, shining, you must be finished by that day. The advantage we have with fit out work is we can work all hours. We can work, from morning till night and through the night sometimes. So we have to find the appropriate subcontractor that's going to be willing to do that as well, to assist you to make sure that you finish on time. So more importantly for the company I was doing the work for was that I finish on time. So if my rates were the same or a little bit higher, it didn't matter, as long as, because they knew that I performed and I finished on time. This is what we need from our subcontractors. It's no good getting a cheaper subcontractor, but he's going to slow your job down. He's not going to finish it on time. Because what you should be emphasizing more than anything else as a builder is your reputation, having a good reputation. And that involves finishing your project on time, finishing to the quality that the client expects, okay? So reviewing the project at the end of the day will assist you in this matter. Okay, another very important part is to make sure that insurances are up to date, that they have insurances, okay? It's not unusual for some subcontractors not to be current with their insurances or not to have insurances. And then what happens if you have a subcontractor who comes to your project and doesn't have workers' compensation insurance for his employees, and one of them has an accident? The workers' compensation is then going to be coming after you as the builder, okay? It doesn't just chase the employer of the subcontractor. If that person is injured, they're going to come looking at you to pay for his rehabilitation. And if it's worse, that's even worse for you, okay? So it's very important, a simple, do you have workers' compensation? Let me have a copy of it. That's what you should be doing as a builder. Same thing with public liability. Motor vehicle insurance as well can be relevant if they're driving on sites with their vehicles, okay? They can create damage. So another important part is professional indemnity. If your subcontractor is giving you is giving you advice, is giving you design work, then they should have professional indemnity. Because if something goes wrong, if their advice is wrong, if their design is wrong, and it affects your building, somebody is going to need to pay for the damage that's going to happen if you have to redo things, or there's a problem and whatever happens. Let's say, let's take an example of a consultant, someone who's designing and building a landscape wall for you, a retaining wall, and that retaining wall falls and creates damage to property or injures somebody. Okay? Then you would need to have, that subcontractor would need to have professional indemnity insurance to be covered for anything they design. As a builder, we don't need professional indemnity insurance unless we're doing design and construct, unless we're giving advice. Generally, we build according to the advice that's been given, or the designs that's been given by the engineers and the architects. Okay, so they are the ones that need the PI insurance, professional indemnity insurance. Okay. All right. Another thing that we need to make sure that we do, and too often smaller builders are not doing this, and that is to have a contract between the head contractor, that's us, the builder, and the subcontractor, all our trades. We need to make sure before they start work, we sign them up on a contract. And too often people say, oh, we can do it, we know them, shake hands, yes, you're a good tradesperson, I've used you before, let's just come and do the job. Your price is good. Okay. It's not as simple as that, because that's all good if nothing goes wrong. But the nature of the industry is that things do go wrong, and we must make sure we are covered, and as well, the subcontractor is covered, but more importantly, that we are covered as the builder. So we sign them up and we have all these conditions, and some of these terms and conditions are what's stated there. Payment terms, okay, when are they going to get paid? Some subcontractors might say, my good price that I've given you is subject to you paying me every week. I know your company, they'll say, pays every month, but I want to be paid every week. Otherwise, I can't give you that price. So we have to consider that and say, okay, can we change our systems? Are we willing to pay this subcontractor every week? So payment terms, or at which are we paying by stages? Are we paying when they reach at a certain stage, present us with a finished floor slab, for instance, to pay the concreter? Or do they want to be paid every fortnight? So these are things that need to be discussed and agreed upon, and not just by shaking of hands, but in writing, okay, in a contract. Often the subcontractor will have their terms and conditions in their quotation, but we don't want to listen to their terms and conditions. We want them to follow our terms and conditions. We want all the subcontractors to be following our terms and conditions. Okay? I don't want to have 20 different variations because each contractor wants to be paid weekly, monthly, fortnightly, okay, at this stage, at that stage. No, I want to be uniform. My company needs to have everything processed uniform, so I know every 2 weeks, every month, people get paid. All right? Subletting works to other subcontractors. That's an important one too, because the contract, if you say nothing, there is nothing stopping your subcontractor subletting, engaging other subcontractors. I'll give you an example. If you have a subcontractor who is doing the plumbing work, and they say to you, let me price the roofing as well, because we can do plumbing, we can do roofing, we can do everything. We're fantastic, okay? So you think, okay, you know what? Let's give it to these people if their price is good. So we give it to this company. And this company, without telling us, subcontracts the roofing contract to somebody else. So maybe they gave us a price, say, for $100,000 for the roof and $100,000 for the plumbing work inside the house or the building. they think, you know what, I can get somebody, I can get this other company, I can get my friend, Mr. Yang, who does roofing, and I've got a contract for $100,000 from the builder, Theo. I'm going to give the roofing contract to my friend, Mr. Yang, who's going to do it for $80,000. And I'm going to make $20,000 for doing nothing, just the plumbing work. Okay, so they subcontract or sublet the work. Now, what happens when the job finishes and we have a problem with the roof? We're going to go back to the contractor we engaged, and he's going to say, the first thing he's going to say is, oh, look, we didn't do it. I gave that work to my friend, Mr. Yang. He did it. Okay, it's got nothing to do with us. Well, it has. If you've got a contract, it has. But can you see the problems that can happen by subletting the work? It actually can put you in a bad situation. So what we do is very simply, in a trade agreement between the subcontractor and the head contractor, we actually say that no subletting of works is to be done on this project, or no subletting of works to be done without our consent, because sometimes it may assist. Maybe the subcontractor will say, look, I can't finish the job in the time because for whatever reason, I've had issues, half my staff have left, I need to get assistance from another plumber. So he says, can I engage another plumber to assist me on this job? So we might say, of course, yes, do it if it's going to help you, as long as we have one point of contact, one responsibility. So it's very important. Little things are very important to make sure that we enter them into the contract, because if we don't have them in the contract, then we're allowing that person to do whatever they like sometimes. Okay, so also in a contract, we might have the liability for the design. Going back to an example of a landscaper creating the design and retaining walls, he has liability for that design. We put that in the contract, okay? Waste management, that's another thing we put in the contract. We might say, okay, for instance, the waste, any waste that from your materials, from your work, you take away from the site. We don't want to have to deal with that. Or we might say, you must not leave them on the floor of the building, you must put them in the bins provided. And there might be separate bins for recycled goods, for waste. So having that information in a contract is very important, because if we don't, then they don't, excuse me, they won't have to provide it. They won't have to do it. There'll be arguments after. And it happens all the time on building sites where the subcontractor says, I did not allow for this. Okay? So we must make sure that it's in writing, and the best place for it to be is not in a quotation from the subcontractor, but in a contract. Okay? The availability of management for regular site meetings. Now, this is crucial too. You may not think it's so important, but I have found in my experience that having regular site meetings with the relevant subcontractors, so we don't bring everybody in, because we might have 50 subcontractors. We don't bring them all in. We bring the ones that are relevant, that is, at the time, or the ones that are just about to start. Okay, so we bring them in and we discuss where the project's at, what can we do to fix any issues. And generally you find if you have the subcontractors in the same room, sitting down, talking, whether it's on site or in the office, that they will come up with solutions to assist you. They will help each other instead of fighting against each other. Okay? So that's a very crucial point. Okay. So in terms of determining the subcontractor requirements, the type and number of subcontractors. So what do we need? What type of trade? What type of speciality must they have? The number of subcontractors that we need in order to comply with our program. Remember, we created a program to keep our client happy, to make sure that we finish the job when we're supposed to finish. Okay, so that's based on the project time frame. The work sequence, what follows what? Which activity, which task? So when, it might be a multi-level building, 3-story, 4-story building, okay? So we need to sequence the work. One trade follows the other trade, and they follow on the next floor and the floor above. So we have to sequence the work. Okay. Working out how many hours of work are required for each part of the work. So how many hours do we need to do a particular task? This is all helpful. Understanding this as a builder, you can then determine what subcontractors you need. And of course, a lot of this comes with experience. And if you don't have this experience, it pays you to bring somebody in your organization as an employee, as a consultant, who can give you that experience. Otherwise, it can cost you money. All right, now to come to the crux of everything, the actual selection criteria. Okay, so how do we select the subcontractors? Now, the relevant experience. Previous experience in similar projects, very important. And I think, well, hang on, if they're a painter or if they're a roofer or if they're, well, let me tell you that that's not always the case in my experience. I've been in situations where I've employed, let's say I've engaged a roofing contractor, and I was told, yes, he's very good, by my supervisor who had used him in that area. I hadn't been to that area, it was outside of Sydney. And it was a project for, I think, 10 townhouses. And what happened? The roofing contractor didn't do a good job. Why? Because the roof we were using was a metal roof, and this roofing contractor had done wonderful work with tiled roofs, okay? So my supervisor knew him. He said he's very good. He's done numerous jobs for me, but they were all tiled roofs. And now he was doing a metal deck roof, and he did a terrible job, okay? So relevant experience. The problem was there was no relevant experience. Okay. Appreciation of the task. What does that mean? That means how much does the subcontractor understand about what he has to do here? How he needs to do it, how he needs to work in with our program, how he needs to work in with the rest of our subcontractors, because this project is different to a previous project or another project you may be working on. Maybe there's a lot of security, maybe they can't work at certain hours, maybe, so there may be very many different factors. How much does he really understand about what we're doing here? How much does he understand about the quality of finish we have to achieve? It's not your normal finish. So really, appreciation of the task is very important. Past performance. How has the subcontractor performed previously? We need to keep records of this. We need to keep records so we can say, you know, this subcontractor has been doing very good for the last 10 years. And we must be able to justify that so we can use him again or put him onto another project manager that's within our organization. Okay? Past performance. Management and technical skills. So do they have the technical skills, firstly, to do the work? If it's specialized work or high quality work, do they have the skilled labor? Because not every tradesperson is the same. Some are good, some are bad, some are average. What do we need for this job? What type of project is it? Is it industrial? Is it residential? Is it retail? All these things change and could give us a subcontractor that may not be suitable. So the management of the organization, how do they communicate? How do they manage their workers? Do they just send their workers out, say, tomorrow you're going to that job and that's it, go do it? Or do they have someone who goes there, supervises them, gives them all the information, for their workers to start. So let's say they have a manager or a supervisor who liaises or discusses the situation with the builder. And he knows exactly what he needs to do. So he tells his team of workers on site that morning, this is where you're starting, this is what you're doing, okay? So management of your workers, technical skills, resources. Do you have the resources as a subcontractor? So I can say, look, I might get a price from someone to do painting and then find out that, you know what, he's only got himself as a painter. And that's no good. I need 5 people at least to do this work within the time I want. So he doesn't have the manpower. Or it could be another, it could be let's say a carpenter. And he doesn't have all the tools, all the equipment required to do the work efficiently. He does it all by hand instead of having good equipment, okay? So resources. And management systems we discussed. How does he manage it? Methodology. Okay, how is he going to do this job? And a good way of working out how good a subcontractor is to sit down with them before they start the job, obviously, and say, okay, how do you propose to do this work? We show them the plans. In your experience, how do you propose to do it? How long is it going to take you? Where will you start? We get a very good understanding of their ability to their methodology, how they're going to do the job. We can see how experienced they are, how comfortable they are. They're not just saying to us, oh, what do you want? When do you want it? Yeah, okay, we can do that. No, show me. Okay, we're going to start here. We're going to have 3 men here. We're going to have 4 men there. By the end of the week, we're going to be at this point. So methodology. So you can see that price, which is the final point there, is not the most important thing always. Okay. Yes, it is very important, but it's not always important. So understand that we have to think about too many things, not just price. If we think about just price, we can get ourselves in trouble. Right. So their proposed approach. So this is a further breakdown of what I've just explained. Their proposed approach. So that's like the methodology. How are they going to do their work? Their technical capacity, their project management. Do they have project management skills within their organization? Of course, if we're talking about a small subcontractor group of 2-3 people, it means nothing. But often in bigger jobs, we're using subcontract teams or companies that have 20, 30, 40 people. Of course, they need to have management systems. They need to have project managers to manage their work, to deal with the clients. And when you have a large organization, a large company like that, you find that the ability to communicate, the ability to get things done is much, much better. Yes, you might be paying more, but you are assured that the work is going to be done. And as a builder, that is the most important thing. And quality assurance is very important as well. Okay, how do they manage their work? Do they manage their quality while they're doing the work? Or do they just wait and hope that the builder ticks it off? Okay. Claims against defective or substandard work. So making sure that we have good tradesmen, skilled people who are going to give us the quality that we want. The quality is specified in the drawings, in the specifications, in the contract. We refer them to what quality we want. So making sure they have a good quality management system to achieve that quality. How are they going to achieve the quality that's required? Okay. Now, this is something that I've put up here, which you can say how we select subcontractors. And every project is going to be different. So we have 100% of the selection process is going to be based 40% by non-price factors. And these price factors are some of the criteria that I've listed there. Now, each organization will have its own, but these are some that I've listed that I think are important. And we have a weighting associated with them. Okay, I'll just get that in a second. But So we have the selection process. We're going to select the subcontractor in this particular project, 40% on non-price factors and 60% on price factors. In other words, 60% is going to be related to his price, but 40% of the selection process is going to be about other criteria. And 30% of that other criteria is his past performance and relevant experience. So technical skills are 15%, resources are 25%. So what we do here is we set up a table, a weighting table, which means then we would multiply, let's say, for each subcontractor. If we have 3 subcontractors, we would then multiply, for instance, 0.4 for non-price factors by, if we were looking at their relevant experience, we rate the subcontractors from 1 to 10, and we give them a rating, okay, where 10 is very good. So we might say this subcontractor A has a very good rating for relevant experience and past performance, and we're going to give him 10 out of 10. So his score for the first one would be 0.4 non-price factors times 10 times 0.3 for the weighting, and he would get a figure. Then we do the same for subcontractor B. Subcontractor B may only get a 5 out of 10 for relevant experience, so he's going to get a lower score. So we do all of this, carry out all these calculations, and at the end of the day, we get a figure which can assist us in saying this is the best subcontractor based on the calculations that we've done. Now, it's hard in this presentation. This presentation isn't here to, I'm not here to go through all of this for you because it takes a bit of time, but this is something that we do as a course in our courseware, where we teach people how to do this and we go through the process. But understand there is a selection process, and this is one of the ways that we do it. Okay. One of the things that we must do as an organization, as a company, is we shouldn't be discriminating. So we should ensure equal opportunity to all subcontractors. As long as they fit the criteria, we cannot say we're not using you because you're Indian or Chinese or Lebanese, right? We need to make sure that we give equal opportunity to all the subcontractors, that we're going to say, okay, you can price our job because you fit the criteria, and we're not going to have any preference because you're my friend. Even though these things happen, by law, we're not allowed to do that, okay? We should advise of the outcome to everyone, all our subcontractors. And remember, we need our subcontractors. So we have to be nice to the ones who don't win, who don't come through. If they're on our panel, we might have 3, 4, 5 subcontractors that do painting or do concreting. We have to advise them, say, look, sorry, you didn't win at this time, but you know, you were a little bit high on the steel placement, okay? So maybe next time look at that figure a little bit, because if we just say, sorry, bad luck, they won't want to price for us again, maybe. And we may need them next time. We need to have at least a few subcontractors that we can actually get pricing off. And we're not going to have the same one winning every single job, okay? So we need to be good to our subcontractors, advise them of any outcome. Oops. Okay, credit checks. Make sure that the subcontractor can financially undertake the project. Can he pay his people? Or is he going to come to you and say, oh, I can't pay my wages this week. I need money from you. Okay, we don't want to be in that situation, okay? Very important to check referees. What is that? Checking previous jobs, checking other builders that this subcontractors work for. So you ring up the builder and say, how have you found this guy? Whatever they are, XYZ concreting. Have they performed well for you? It's amazing what you might find out from people in your industry, okay? So checking their referees. Very important, interviewing your subcontractors. Before you sign the contract, before you engage them, have an interview with them regarding the project, okay? And make sure that you do bring them in, you do go through every part of the contract with them so they understand, because they may have made an error. They may have made some error, or they didn't understand a certain part of the specification. So you need to make sure, for your sake as a builder, that they have understood everything that you want them to do in their scope of works. So the best way to do that is to bring them in and go through everything one by one, okay? Risk, not checking referees and relying on the subcontractor's price and talk. In other words, I need somebody to do the painting. This guy gives me, company Z gives me a good price. And I say, fantastic, they gave me a good price. You know what? I'm going to use them because they're much cheaper than everybody else. What did I do? I've allowed an element of risk now in my project. Why? Because I don't know how good they are. I haven't checked their referees. Just because they're a painter doesn't mean they're good. I need to check what jobs they've done, what work they've done, what's the quality been like. Talk to people, okay? Not just rely on what they say to me. They might say, I'm the best. I've done this, I've done that, I've done all, and they haven't done that, right? So you can't take that sort of a risk. Okay, so reviewing their performance. We do that to see how good they have been on this project. What did they do right? What did they do well? What did they not do so well? Okay. So we review it by getting their performance, by obviously looking at the results, but very important to speak to your project manager and your site managers and contracts administrators and say, how did you find working with these people? How did you find dealing with these people? Okay, so we need to make sure that firstly, they are reliable. Okay, they've turned up when we wanted them to turn up and not when they wanted to turn up. B, they did the work in the time frame allocated following our program, or did we have to chase them every day? Every day we had to chase them to come on site. That's not good, right? Quality of work. So there's many, many things we need to check off. So we have a checklist. We have lists to say, okay, did they do this? Did they do that? How would they perform here? It's very important to understand and review the subcontractor's performance, because everybody, like human beings, we're going to have good things, we're going to have bad things. Same with subcontractors. What are their good things? What are their bad things? And if we know that, we know when and where to use them again, okay, or where not to use them, or how to help them improve. And this is feedback. We give them feedback and we say to them, you know what, your job was good, but next time we want you to attend our meetings because we needed you to be there. By you not being there, it slowed us down, or it created problems for other subcontractors, okay? Okay, subcontractor management plan. Having a plan. This is basically understand the scope of works that they're doing. So they give us, if subcontractors have a management plan, it's fantastic. It tells us exactly what they believe their scope of works is, right? How they're going to achieve it, what resources they're going to have on the job, how they're going to manage the quality of the job, okay? So it breaks down their scope of works, their whole contribution to the project for us to see. This is professionalism. This is showing that they understand what's required. Okay, having a subcontractor management plan will reduce the risks of mistakes and misunderstandings because it's evident in the plan that they understand and create. They will find and show you how they're going to deliver what they're supposed to deliver. In other words, they have to have this part of the second floor finished by such and such a date. This is how we're going to do it. Okay, we're going to use this type of equipment to load, you know, put our materials on the first floor. Then we're going to have 2 men who take it to the particular area where we need it, and we're going to have 3 installers. Okay, something like that over a period of 5 days. So they're breaking down the work. And making sure we can see that if we look at their management plan, that they are going to achieve the contractual obligation that they have, and that is finishing within the time that they've specified and to the quality. So they might be referring in their management plan to Australian standards, saying the work is going to be undertaken to the AS 1234, and the supervision that's going to be involved in ensuring that is going to be our manager who rotates on all our projects every day. We'll spend half hour each day in the morning setting them up, and then a half hour at the end of the day checking that the work's been done properly. Okay. Determine what subcontractor tasks have been completed and update the management plan to reflect this. Obviously, that's something that we're just constantly monitoring where we're at and updating. Identify any tasks that have not been completed and should have been. So have we fallen behind? And how do we bring our project back on track? And this is all before the builder tells the subcontractor what to do. The management plan within the organization is telling us what to do. So are there any things in any issues that will make us revise our budget as a subcontractor or timeline? Okay. Critical elements regarding the terms of engagements are as follows. Contract conditions, we've discussed that. We have to make sure that the contract conditions, if you're signing a contract and it's not favorable for you as the builder, just because the contractor's price is good, it's not good at the end of the day. As we know, there are many more factors than price to consider. What are the scope of works? Clearly stated in the contract. If they're not, and how do you clearly state them? Well, you might refer to drawings and to specifications, as well as state what's in the contract. If you don't cover every aspect of the work, then guaranteed your subcontractor is going to say, I didn't, my price did not include that. Okay, that I thought the painter was going to do that. A classic example is a subcontractor for putting panels in, let's say cladding on a building. He nails them in, right? And in doing so, he might nail them in too far, he may not nail them in enough, and then the painter comes along and says, you know what, I didn't allow to hammer the nails further in, I didn't allow to do so much putty or patching because he's put them in too far. Can you see that you can get issues that, and these things do happen. Every example I give you has happened to me. I understand these issues. So the idea is to try and avoid them. And the best place to avoid them is in the contract scope of works. Okay. Reviewing, monitoring, reviewing constantly, not just at the end, but constantly stops problems from becoming bigger. Okay. Conditions to be met that we've agreed to, make sure we keep telling them say, you know, remember, you, Mr. Subcontractor, you said you would do this. Remember that by such and such a date, you have to be at this point. This is the idea of regular communication and regular meetings. Okay. Again, same thing. All right. Inspections of work undertaken. So at the end of the day, we need to, as we progress the project, inspect the works as they've been undertaken to see where things are at. Checklists are a very important tool. It's free, and it's very important to make sure that everything is being done as it's supposed to be done. Okay. Preparing reports, maybe with defects, maybe highlighting certain things that need to be addressed, quality of finishing, whatever, okay, at various points. Regular project meetings, as I said, I can't specify or insist how important they are, because this is where things get discussed. This is where you resolve things by regular project meetings. Okay, now getting all the information about the subcontractor's performance on the job and then objectively looking at it and being in a position to create a review based on how his performance has been. From information from the actual performance in the finished product to how they got there. As I said earlier, discussions with your project manager, with your site manager. Okay. Did they do what they said they were going to do? Where did they not comply? In other words, was it some areas of quality, time? Did they not comply? Were there too many variations on the project because of them? Okay. So we need to give them feedback and say, yes, you're great, but you know what? You always have too many variations on your jobs. So we have to find a way of cutting that out. Now, we use all that information to create this rating. Remember this table I showed you earlier? We create the rating for the subcontractor based on the different criteria that I had there or that you have. This is up to you how you want to do that, what criteria you want to use. But it all comes back to the importance of the project. Am I building a multi-story commercial building that needs very high quality finishes, or am I building a simple house out west that just needs to meet the minimum BCA requirements? So thank you. I know I would have loved to have been able to spend more time explaining all those things in detail, but I believe that I've given you a good overview of the importance of subcontractor selection